When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
He likes movies, we like movies. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world.
I'd buy that for $1.
Greetings.
Hi.
You're watching SeptumSin versus the world. I'm SeptumSin. This is Kotobuki Jake, and we're back.
Yes.
Thanks to Kotobuki Jake, working hard. We are back with the entertainment deaths.
Yep.
He went through the hard labor of finding them, of putting the pictures there, and then I slapped them all together and made a slideshow. So you can take a look at who has passed at this point.
She was living on couches that belonged to her friends. She would sleep with her feet in her shins hanging over the ends, looking over her shoulder, never knowing herself. I believe she could never fit in till somebody new came along.
I will let you get started. You got a lot more to talk about than I do.
I do apologize for, I had not even occurred to me to do the gravestones that he's been doing in the past, and so we went with a straight alphabetic listing without the dates. It's not as detailed as before, but hopefully that was nice, and maybe we'll do it the old way next week. Yeah. But it was interesting learning how to do this, but I think it turned out all right. I hope it did. You can let us know in the comments. The first one, I guess we'll start things off big. There were not a huge number of like really big names this week, but there were a lot of like interesting ones. We did mention last week Gary Kurtz. He was right at the start, and we put him on the slideshow because he was during the time frame we were covering. Mm-hmm. But we talked about him last week, so I do want to say the other big name this week, the other big one, for me in particular, I would consider this a big one. Marty Balin, who's 76 years old, American Hall of Fame rock singer. Specifically, he was co-founder of the group Jefferson Airplane, and he was not with them throughout their history, but he did come back at one point while they were Jefferson Starship. For a while there, he and Grace Slick traded lead vocals for the band, and he also was their guitarist and one of their chief lyricists for a lot of the songs. And I admit, I'm not exactly a fanatic of Jefferson Airplane, but they have some really good stuff, and there's some really good songs they've done, and Starship had some really good songs, and that is just a huge part of rock history, and that was a big one. When I was compiling the list, I didn't go too heavy into the musicians. I did include a few, and that was one that I had to include. Yeah.
Well, I only had 2 that I thought about highlighting. I had 3, but but he's actually heard a lot of it. I don't know. I probably have, but I wouldn't recognize it as. One of them is Hikaru Miyata, who is a voice actor. He's done a lot of background roles over the years. One of the most famous was he played the character Homura Mitokado in Naruto Shippuden and Naruto. And again, he played a bunch of other bit characters. But again, we should remember a lot of these voice actors. They work for very little money typically. They work hard over in Japan, and it's good to be remembered. He died at age 87 of aortic dissection, it looks like. That sounds, like I said, that
sounds like an embolism or something like that, don't you think?
It's like somebody cut his heart open or something. Maybe it's like a... Every time I picture the guy from the second Indiana Jones movie, you know, Kalima. But it's kind of sad. It's just... It sounds painful.
It does.
I really hope that it wasn't painful.
Yeah.
And, you should honor people who work hard like this. And in Japan, they typically work harder than most of us.
And admittedly, this guy did not have a huge number of credits. He had a few sprinkled through the years, but a couple of them were pretty big and kept him busy. And he may have had, this may have been on top of something else. But yeah, in general, you're right. The voice actors have worked very hard. Another group that tends to be worked very hard, of course, are illustrators, for anime, but also for comics and whatnot. And one of our losses this week was an American comic book artist named Norm Breyfogle. He was 58. Complications from stroke, which for someone who's 58, that's kind of... But he apparently was a longtime illustrator for Batman and did some other big Prime and some others. And anytime I've seen some bits of his artwork, and he was a talented artist. So anytime you lose a talented artist, it's a shame. And definitely being comic nerds, we like to make note of any comic individuals who,
We got a whole bunch of them. Go ahead for another one. I need to get one off the shelf.
Okay. My next one was definitely a very tragic one. Shoki Makapa. She was only 34. She was a South African actress who had a number of small roles. Notably, she appeared in Dread. And very notably, she appeared in the film Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. She had some notable television credits as well. She apparently, after years of depression, committed suicide. And this has been a big year for big name people committing suicide. I wish it would stop, but I understand. It's something that when you're dealing with that, it's hard to deal with sometimes. But it was 34. She was very young, and that's shame. Yeah.
Speaking of artists, there was one person who passed. His name was Roger Mainwood, and he passed at 65. Now, his art style is very iconic. One of the ones there are 2 that I most remember him for, and one of them was When the Wind Blows. This is dark. Very dark. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out.
I haven't.
It's about an old couple that is surviving in the aftermath of a nuclear explosion, and the ending is quite depressing.
Is it?
But you can see the art style is right there with where he is.
It almost looks like the opening sequence to Paranoia Agent, but with a different art style,
And I think the other one was the Snowman,
yes.
Which was very iconic from many of our
I
youth.
grew up with the Snowman, and that was pretty dark itself. I mean, geez, it's so sad at the end. But it's such a wonderful that was it Walking on the Air, that theme song is just a huge part of my childhood. And when I was collecting pictures for this, I did not even realize that I had chosen a picture of him at the drawing board for the snowman until I was going back to, oh, holy crap, he's drawing the snowman. But yeah, that was When the Wind Blows was the one that I think Wikipedia had credited him. I wouldn't have known to look for the snowman if I didn't see that picture. But yeah, the fact that he was hugely involved in the animation for that, for me, that's a big loss, because that's like a big part of my childhood. And you're right, that is an iconic art style, very much so. So that was kind of a shame. Karen Dwyer was another one who was very young, and we did not find a cause of death here, but she was only 43. And she was a Canadian actress who had a lot of bit roles. She showed up in Superstar and apparently starred in the movie Better Than Chocolate, which I still need to see. I've never seen it. But she also had some notable television roles, and one of those was a recurring role in the English dub of Sailor Moon. Stars. So, which she actually warranted an A&N blurb because of that. But again, I don't know what the cause of death was, but 43, she was not old. So, it's kind of sad. And did you have any more?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, and the last one is kind of stretching it slightly in terms of entertainment, but I did want to talk about it because it kind of fits into themes that we've been talking about a lot on this channel. Specifically the idea of, I guess, the Me Too movement and female empowerment and whatever. One of the losses, and the youngest one I found this week, Tara Fares, a Iraqi model who was Miss Baghdad, former Miss Baghdad, and apparently was a big Instagram star, But she was shot and killed in her own car while driving through Baghdad. She was only 22, and eyewitness accounts, pretty much it was a calculated hit against her because, woman out there being visible and it's really unfortunate. Apparently there have been 3 or 4 such incidents in Iraq in the last couple months, but this was one of the highest profile ones, and I felt like I had to include her. That was just that's too young. That is too young, and who knows, if she'd lived longer, she may have made it into entertainment full bore or whatever.
Well,
but yeah.
Iran has a very, very healthy entertainment venue. I mean, Iraq. Oh, well, Iraq does not necessarily.
No, Iran does. You're
Iran
right.
does, though. Yeah,
you're right. They are underrated for their art. But at any rate, that was the list this week. They're, like I said, not an enormous number. As per usual, if you feel like we missed anyone, feel free to let us know. Yep. Let us know if you really want those dates back. That would be really cool. I don't mind doing it without the dates, but if you have strong feelings, leave a comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes a lot longer to set up, which is a lot of it's just time. Yeah. But with him taking the time to do most of it, if it takes me a couple of seconds to put it together, I can do that. So, any case, we will see you on the next one.
Goodbye. Goodbye.